Okay, fine, perfect. So we'll get started with the ORC sessions starting from today, and then we will plan to complete the ORC sessions in next 24 hours, and then we'll move on to the journeys, onboarding, and then goals and performance. So this is what we have planned for in our this particular training batch. And as I always say, if you have any doubts or questions at any point of time, please feel free to shoot it out. And if you feel that these questions can wait till the end of the session, we can have those at the Q&A. But if you feel that it has to be addressed immediately, then feel free to shoot out your questions at any given point of time. And
Sure.
and as a general practice, what I always say to my trainees is that see, the only way how you can effectively consume the knowledge from the training sessions is not only by attending the sessions. More than that, it's like your hands-on practice. Until and unless you guys do your hands-on practice, right, you consuming the knowledge what we share in the sessions will not be 100%. Because the more the practice you guys do post the sessions, that's when you get more hands-on experience. And as I said in the previous sessions, I'll be sharing a lot of informations, a lot of knowledges against each and every topic with regards to the certifications, with regards to interviews and project scenarios, what kind of issues we may get, and how to address the issues, how to look at the issues. That's the first and the most important thing, right? See, fixing up an issue, that's the second thing. The perspective towards our view on the issue, right? That is the most important thing. Sometimes we have seen in the real-time projects where, like, we would have had some very very minor issues, but it would have taken a huge number of days to fix it. But when we look at a different perspective, then we find the solution to be very simple. And then for complex issues also, like we will have a very simple issue. And then so it's all depends on how we look into the issues. So we'll explore those aspects as well as part of our training sessions. Okay. So the first part of the training session, right, so we have one more joining. We'll just wait for the other participant to just, yeah. Okay, hi Rizwana. So first we'll get started with the introduction to the recruiting cloud. So what we'll do is, as part of the training session, once we complete the entire recruiting module, right, what you could able to do is what we will start with. So you can able to describe, the different end user experiences for, recruiters, hiring managers, and for the candidates. And then you can able to set up role-based user securities with regards to the recruiting module. And then you can able to, do settings and tasks related to the recruiting module. And then you can able to start configuring content library, start developing contents in the content libraries. And then you should able to create job requisitions and questionnaires, and then you should be able to configure the job requisition templates, and then the notifications alerts, and then the selection process, job application flow, career sites for the candidates, and then job offers. And then there are a lot of other supplementary tasks like interview postings, interview scheduling, recruiting campaigns, agency setups, and schedule process. So these are the objects which you should be able to start configuring once we complete our training sessions. As part of the training session, these are the different topics which we are going to be covering as part of the recruiting module. Okay? So we will start from here. So the first the introduction to recruiting is what we are going to do. And then the next we have end user experience, where we will see who are the different kind of end users we have in this particular recruiting module. And then we will also start configuring the users and the securities. And this particular topic, right, the users and securities, you guys would feel little off the topic, because this basically requires an a knowledge on the core HR systems. Okay? But I'll try to see how much possible I can able to cover in our recruiting sessions. And then we will start with the recruiting and the candidate experience management. This is like the core setups of the recruiting module. Okay? So we'll see what are the different kind of setups we have, and then we'll look into it. And then we have pre-screening questions. So what is a pre-screening question? So whenever, you guys would have all applied to multiple job applications online, right? Through Naukri or LinkedIn or any portals. So when you apply to those jobs, you would have seen some options, right? Where you would ask for some questions and then you give the response, right? So those are basically what we call it as the pre-screening questions. What is the use of pre-screening questions? So I believe, like, most of you have the recruitment related background, right? So this pre-screening questions will help the recruiters and the hiring managers to shortlist candidates. Let's say I have a Java requirement, okay? And then I wanted to hire a Java consultant, Java developer. Okay? So I wanted to hire a Java developer, but I want the developer to be Sun certified. Okay? So what we do is we'll create a pre-screening question, with the text like, are you Sun certified? The response like, yes or no. If they choose the response as yes, then we give some additional points to them. Okay. And then using these points, we can, filter the candidates or we can shortlist the candidates. So those are called as pre-screening questions. Next, we have job requisition management. So where we are going to see how to create the job requisitions. What are the different components we have in the job requisitions and how to do the customizations, because customization plays a crucial role in all the projects, right? I've been implementing ORC right from 2019, 2018 is when the Oracle Recruiting Cloud has came out, and 2019 onwards I've been implementing ORC module. And then one thing which is common, across all my implementations is the customizations on the requisitions. So some customers, they say like, they wanted to add so and so fields. There could be a lot of customizations. So we'll see, what we can able to do in the requisitions page, what we cannot able to do in the requisitions page. Next, we have notifications and alerts. What is that we do in the notifications and alerts? In the notifications and alerts, we basically, configure all kind of notifications. See, one of the most crucial component in any ERP applications, right, is the notifications and alerts, because only through notifications and alerts is when you can able to notify different stakeholders on the progress of the requisitions. So let's say when a requisition is created by a hiring manager, then you have to notify a recruiter stating that, there's a requisition created. Similarly, when a recruiter, sends a candidate to the hiring manager for review, then the hiring manager has to be notified. And then when you extend an offer to a candidate, then the candidate has to be notified. When you schedule an interview, the interviewers has to be notified. When the interviewer submits some feedback, then the recruiters has to be notified. So the notification is a very crucial component in the ERP applications. So we'll see what kind of notifications and alerts we have with regards to the ORC, and then we'll see how to configure each and every one. Next, we'll get into the candidate selection process. So what is in candidate selection process? Candidate selection process, in short, we call it a CSP. So the CSP is one of, it's a backbone to the recruiting process. Okay. So when a candidate has applied, the candidate has to go through various stages of the recruiting process, right? So those stages is what we will be configuring in the candidate selection process. Okay? So when a candidate has applied, the candidate has to first go. Sorry, when the candidate has applied, the candidate has to go through, the recruiter screening first, and then once the recruiter screening is completed, then hiring manager screening, then first round of interview, second round of interview, and then offer, we will have the offer section coming in, and then post offer the background check. Once the background check is completed, then we will be onboarding them. So this defining this particular stages, right, is what we will be doing in the selection process. And then next we have job application flow. So what is a job application flow? You guys would have all applied to multiple job openings online in job portals and LinkedIn and other things like that, right? So when you apply, right, you will see series of, sections where you have to enter informations, right? Start maybe you will have like, contact informations, communication details, addresses, your skills and qualifications, education. So there will be different sections, right? So those is what we will be configuring in the application flow. And then next we have the career sites. So we will see how to design and career sites, because with ORC module, we have an inbuilt career sites. Okay? So we can build a career sites within the ORC module. So, and with this career sites can be customizable only for the external candidates. And for the internal candidates, we have like, an inbuilt career sites, internal career sites, which we can still do few customizations, but there are certain restrictions and limitations, which we'll also see in detail. Next, you have job offer. So once once you complete the all the the recruiting process, right? The last step would be the offer, where you have to create an offer for a candidate, get it approved by different stakeholders, and then once the offer is approved, you have to extend the offer to the candidate, right? So we'll see all those process. We will also see how to create an offer letter templates. We will not go too technical because it requires certain applications and certain technical aspects as well. But from a functional standpoint, we will see in detail, each and every components we have in the offer letters. So then we will start with the interview scheduling. The reason why we have the interview scheduling, all these topics, right? So these are all like, separate subtopics. Yeah. So that's why we have kept it separately, because these are like, one continuous flow, and these are like, the subtopics. So what we'll do is, as part of the interview and scheduling, we will see how to create interviews. What are the functionalities we have in the interview management in ORC? So we have lot of new enhancements keep coming up, especially starting from 2021. Oracle has been bringing in lot of new functionalities and features when it comes to the interview scheduling and the interview management basically. Okay. So we'll see what are the different kind of interviews we can create in ORC, and then how to how this each and every type of interview works, and we will also see integrations with some third-party applications. Hmm. So we have enabled certain third-party applications. We'll see how those things works, and then I can also take you guys into some of my customer portals, where we can see like how this third-party integrations will work like. I'll see I'll try to bring as much of information during those sessions, but so whenever we get into the customer portals, right, we'll try to avoid any screen recording to maintain confidentiality. So that's one thing. And then once we are done with the interviews, we will start with recruiting campaigns. Yeah. So campaigns are again, it's another crucial component we have in the recruiting process, right? Because sometimes, we will have very niche skills, yeah, where we wanted to hire some people, right, with niche skills. And then for those kind of, requisitions, we will not be getting candidates easily. Then, what we normally do, we, post the job requisitions in multiple career sites, and then we try to get some referrals, we try to send some IJPs, referral emails within our organizations, right? So the IJP email. So all those things can be configured using campaigns in the ORC module. We'll see about this functionality in detail. And then we'll see the referrals, how an employee can, from an employee perspective, how the employee can submit referrals, what are the different kind of referral options we have, and then most importantly, how to track like who has submitted the source of the referrals, right? So we'll see how to handle all those things. Next we have next we have something called as talent community. So what is a talent community? So it's a community, let's say, for example, we are hiring for some Java developers. Okay. And then, a candidate comes to our career sites and, who is the, let's assume who is an, C++ developer, for example, right? And he or she could not able to find any matching requisitions, but still they wanted to, submit the resume to our database. Then, we have this talent community here. So we'll see in detail about talent community, how it looks like, how the candidates can able to process everything. Next, we will start looking into the agency hiring. And since most of us are from the recruiting background, right? Most of the companies, they use agencies to hire people, right? To get the candidates into our organization. Right? So with ORC module, we have a separate portal for the agents to log in. Okay, where we can create logins for agents, and then agents can create, and then we can invite agents to submit job applications, and then agents will also have a lot of functionalities where they can submit job applications. They can also accept offers. So there are a lot of functionalities, and there are some few real-time challenges as well we have from the agency hiring. Yeah, so I'll be sharing those as well once we go into those particular topics. And then we have schedule process. So schedule process are very crucial in the entire fusion module. Okay, and especially when it comes to the ORC, schedule process are very crucial. The reason being is that the schedule process, in order for certain components to automatically progress, automatically function, right, then we have to use the schedule process. Okay? So one of the simple example I can give you is like, whenever you post a requisition to the career sites, right, it will not be posted automatically to the career sites. Okay, so there is a scheduled process called publish job requisition. Only when we run that scheduled process, this jobs would be posted in our career sites. Okay. So there are a lot of scheduled process, and this scheduled process keeps, the list keeps getting growing. Whenever there is a new future coming up, then there is a certain scheduled process which comes up, and we'll also see like how to keep updated, how to keep us updated with the list of all the new scheduled process, and we'll see those in detail. Okay. Next, we will look at third-party integrations. Since recruiting module is the only module in the Fusion application which interacts with the external world. In the HCM suite, only the ORC module is the only module which interacts with the external audience, not only with the internal employees, right? So as part of the recruiting process, we may have to work with different third-party vendors. Like one very good example is like your background check vendors. If we wanted to do a background check for a candidate, then we have to share the candidate information to the background check partner, right? So how to we have a lot of third party vendors who can be integrated within our ORC module. That way we can share our candidate data to them in ease. Like we don't need any separate integration to be built. It's all like it's an inbuilt integrations with certain setups to be done from our side. So we'll see who are the different kind of third-party integrations, and before that, we'll also see what are the different categories of third parties we have. Like to give you a few examples, like we have background checks, we have assessment partners, we have resume parsing partners, and then job distribution partners. So these are different kind of partners we have, and we'll see how to build integrations with them. So we'll and also just a a caution note, we will not be implementing or will not be enabling all the third-party integrations as part of our training. We'll be enabling few third-party integrations uh, because it requires a lot of licensing aspects. So, there's a licensing aspect as well. So we'll not be enabling all the third-party integrations, but we'll look at a few background check and assessment partners integrations, and we have certain documentations. We'll look into that as well. Okay. Next, we have HDL templates. So what is?
Yeah, I have one query related to schedule processes.
Yes, Rizwana.
Yeah. So are these schedule processes are inbuilt
Yes,
or
all
these are
processes.
customizable?
Yes, this schedule process are all inbuilt. Okay, we don't need to do any kind of integration. Just that we have to schedule. We have to schedule those processes.
Okay, but is it mandatory to enable those processes which are provided by Oracle? If we
Yes,
don't
it
want,
is.
can we disable?
Sorry, Rizwana, I didn't get the last part.
Yeah. Is it mandatory to enable all the schedule processes which are inbuilt?
No, it is not mandate for all the schedule process to be done. Okay. For example, right, in my last project, the customers, they say like, they are not gonna use the campaigns. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They say like they're not gonna. So all we have some, 5 schedule process related to campaigns. Then we will not be scheduling those, campaigns related processes. And then, if the customer says that, they have certain third-party integrations, right? If the customers are not going to use third-party integrations, then we don't need to schedule those third-party related schedule process.
Yeah, but by default, it will be enabled from Oracle, right? Whenever there is
No,
an update.
by default, this schedule process will not be scheduled. It's an explicit process which we have to do from our side.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, got it.
So these are not enabled. Sir, see, the ones which are enabled by Oracle, right? Those are like, an autonomous one, which we don't need to do it. Okay? But this schedule process, which we are going to look into as part of our ORC sessions, right? Those are like,
Mm-hmm.
manual ones, which we have to schedule it.
Okay.
But once we, the reason why we we have kept the schedule process at the end of the sessions is so that, you will get to understand, all this prerequisite topics. And once we go to the schedule process, now we'll get an understanding, why are we scheduling this process? What is the functionality of each and every process? You will get a better understanding.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, great. And now coming back to our HDLs. What is an HDL? HDL means HCM data loader. Okay. So why do we need to use HDLs? HDLs it's a common technology across the the Fusion application. Right. So the main function of the HDL is for bulk loading. Okay? Let's say, for example, right, the customers, right, they have, let me give you a real-time scenario, okay? So in my previous project, the customers, they are an Asian customers. They are based out of in Singapore, okay? So they went for a campus interview. And as part of the campus interview, they have received some 1,000 job applications. Okay. That's like, the database which they have received from the university itself. Okay? So the customer said, Harish, we wanted to, create this 1,000 job applications in our database for, for our, in our application for our database purpose. So what we did, we have to load those job applications into the ORC module. So then we use this HDL. And then customer comes and say, like, let's say they, as part of the bulk hiring, right? They say, Harish, we wanted to create some 100 requisitions. So creating 100 requisitions requires a lot of manual efforts. Let's say if you take average of like, 5 minutes per requisition, that's like 500 minutes, right? So for this kind of bulk data loading, right, we use this HDLs. Okay? And if you ask me, Harish, HDL is the only data loading we have? No. Apart from that, we have one more data loading functionality, which we call it as HSDL, HCM spreadsheet data loader. So there is one more functionality as well, but we will not go in detail into the HSDL, but I will just show you like, the functionality and how it can be used. So that's the purpose of HDL. So again, HDL, we will
Harish,
get
what
into the
is the basic difference between this HSDL and HDL?
we will look in detail, Rizwana, like, once we go to the HDL topics, right? We'll look in detail the different, the functionality, the mechanism, the infrastructure is completely different. Okay?
Okay.
HDL, just to give you a heads up, right? HDL is something, we do in our Excel files, and then we have to convert the data into a different format and then load the data. Okay? HSDL
Okay.
is something, it's little user friendly where like, we can just open the Excel file, and then we have to connect to our portal, to our
Okay.
instance, and then we can just
Mhm.
enter the data details in the Excel file, and then you will see a button called upload. Once you click on the upload button, the data will be loaded into the application. So that's user
Okay.
friendly, but there are a lot of limitations when it comes to HDL and HSDL. Okay? Certain things seems to be easier in HSDL, but when it comes to the effective data loading, right, we always prefer
Mhm.
using HDL. Again, based on the data what we are loading, we use HDL or HSDL.
Okay.
So that's on the HDL. So once we are done with HDL and HSDL, we will go into the reporting. So reporting is again an important aspect in in our day-to-day job, right? Especially as an end user. So they have to see like how many requisitions, like the metrics of the day-to-day work. Then we use this reporting. So we have two kind of reportings in Fusion. One is OTBI, in general, like the end users, or in general we call it as drag and drop report. This is a simple report with a lot of inbuilt functionalities, like the securities, everything are inbuilt. Okay? So OTBA reports are like easy to use, easy to build, and then this OTBA reports gives us real-time data always. And then the second kind of reporting we have is BI reporting. Okay, BI reporting is something which we have to write SQL queries to build reports. Okay, so based on the intensity of the report, we use OTBI or BI. If the report is too complex, requires data from different modules clubbed together, and a lot of complexities are there, then we go with BI reports. If it's a simple report, then we always prefer building it using OTBI, because these are like easy to build reports. And we will also see, like as an implementation consultant, what kind of reports we need. And there are there are good amount of reports which comes as and seeded from Oracle. We'll see what kind of reports. And if you wanted to get a repository of all the reports, then we'll see where we can get those repository from Oracle links. So that's about the reporting. Next we have flex fields. So what is in flex field? Flex fields are basically it's a component. If we wanted to add some custom field in the in our modules, in our pages, then we can add them using the flex fields. So let's say when the recruiters or the hiring managers are creating a requisition, we'll have some standard fields. On top of the standard fields, if the customer says, Harish, we wanted to add some custom fields. Let's say, when we are creating a requisition, and then if this requisition is a replacement requisition, we wanted to capture the name of the employee who is getting replaced. This is a very common, object which most of the customers ask. Okay? So we don't have a seeded field for it. So what we do is we using flexible, we create a new field in the job application. Yeah. So there are three different types of flex fields we have, and then for recruiting module, we will be using only two types of flex fields. We'll see what are those two types and how to create them and how it looks like in the application. We'll see them in detail. And then the last topic which we will be seeing is the HCM Experience Design Studio. Okay. And apart from this, we'll also see one more tool called as Page Composer. So these two tools are customizing tools. If you wanted to do some customizations in the recruiting module, then we use these tools. The reason why I have not mentioned Page Composer in specific here is because Oracle, now they are migrating to a new kind of pages called as Redwood. So if you have been following Oracle updates, like, you would have heard of this term called Redwood. Okay. So basically all our current pages,
Can you spell that for us, Harish? Not able
Redwood,
to find.
Redwood. I can put it in the chat as well. So the current page is what we see. Let me just go to the application. So this is how, the page will look like. So this is how the recruiting pages will look like. Okay. And these pages are called as responsive pages. The reason why they are called as responsive pages, because these pages will can be function. I mean, these pages can be used from a desktop version, and even from a mobile app or from a tab, you can able to use these pages. The look and feel will remain the same. So these are called as responsive pages. Okay. And apart from this, we have a new kind of pages which is coming up in Oracle, which we call it as Redwood. Okay. So this Redwood pages are something which is created using visual builders. So if I just show you an example. So this is a functionality we have in the ORC module, which is Recruiting Activity Center. Okay. So these pages are all like built using the visual builder. This another basically the page architecture gets changed. Okay. And then since Oracle are migrating all the pages from responsive to Redwood pages, and the page composer which I talked about, right, the customization tool does not support on those pages. And then Oracle has been asking us for the last couple of years to stop using the page composer until and unless it is a showstopper, because the page composer changes will not be reflected in the Redwood pages. So it's just a high level information. We'll see in detail once we go into the design studio. So the overall, these are the different topics which we would be seeing as part of our training sessions. So any doubts or questions so far, Tim, on the different course agenda for the ORC module? So we'll have a similar kind of agenda for journeys, goals, and performance. We'll look into those topics once we go into the respective modules. That way it will be easy for you guys to follow.
Harish, one question regarding the bulk loading
Uh-huh.
on the HTL one.
Okay.
So, so what is the limit on bulk loading of CVs?
See,
And also, yeah.
yeah, good, good.
No, and also, does that auto-populate or autofill the fields that we create from the CV?
Okay. See, first question on the bulk loading, right? There is currently no limitation on the number of data we can load. Okay. So the max from the recruiting module, the max I have loaded is like from the job applications, I have loaded like 4,000 job requisitions, and then when it comes to candidate, the max I have personally worked on is like roughly around 45,000 candidates. So that's the
Okay.
data max I have loaded, but I'm pretty sure Oracle will also support more than that.
Okay. So I'm just trying to confirm, since we are going to interact on it. So So in this ORC, we do have an option to provide bulk loading of CVs, and we also have an option to turn that off after it has been created.
Yes,
In Saudi.
see, basically, it's a different page, Ashwini. Okay, so the
Okay.
data loading is it's on a different page, and then the recruiting module it's on a different page. Okay, so by default, right, the recruiters they will not have access to the data loading sections. Okay,
Mhm.
the data loading sections will be given the access to the data loading sections are more secure. Okay, that see everything in the Fusion application, right? So, just let me put this point also for everyone's information. See, everything in Fusion application works runs based on the rules. Okay.
Okay.
So the roles are very crucial in the Fusion application because the roles will have privileges. The privileges will give you the access to certain screens in the application. So by default, the recruiter role will not give you access to the data loading sections.
Okay.
So this is not something, which the recruiter can, recruiter cannot able to do it by themselves. And at least HSDL, like, people with certain, training, they can able to load the data. But when it comes to HDL, like, it is not that easy as it sounds. Because you have to prepare the data in a way that system can read. So that's the thing. So any other doubts or questions, team, on the agenda?
Yeah, Harish. But whatever the access we'll get as a part of this training, we will have access to this module as well, right? HDL and HSDL.
Yes, so if I just go back to the application, right? So you basically, as I said, right, you will get an Excel file like this. You will get access to an Excel file like this, okay? And then you will see, the link, the username and the password. Okay? Once you logged in, right, this is HCM implementation 12, which is like, this particular login. Okay? So you'll have a similar kind of login as what we use in as part of our training sessions. You will have access to entire application. It's
Okay.
not, since you are enrolled only for the recruiting module, you will have access only to the recruiting. It's not like that. You will have an, implementation access.
Okay. Yeah, that's great then.
Yes. Okay. So any other doubts or questions before I move on to the introduction to recruiting?
No, I'm good, Harish.
Okay, perfect. So let me just open the next PPT. And also, team, what I will be doing is, right, once we complete certain topics here, I would be mentioning the date on which when we completed those topics, or the date when we we talked about that particular topics. Okay? Let's say, for example, the course overview, right? What I'll do is I'll just mention 21 Feb 2024. Okay? So the reason why I all normally do this practice is like, let's say once we complete like, 20 or 25 days of training, and then, let's say you have some queries on, the pre-screening questions. And then, if you wanted to see like, this particular video, then you can refer to the date of this, session, and then you can do like, whenever we upload the trainings videos, recording videos, right, we'll have all the informations in the title. But still, if you want to have something specific, right, then you can see against the date, and then you can pull those videos. So that's one thing, which I thought I will just give you an update. Okay. Yeah. So next we will start with, the introduction to the recruiting. So what we'll do is, as a general practice in all my sessions, right, whenever we start a topic, we'll have something called as learning objective. So most of the topics will, we will start with a learning objective. So what do we see in learning objective? The learning objective will give you a synopsis of, what are the different things we are going to see against the particular topic. Okay. So for example, when it comes to the introduction to recruiting, right, the learning objective would be like, introducing you to Oracle Recruiting Cloud, a sample recruiting life cycle, examine prerequisites necessary for implementing the recruiting module, key steps for implementing recruiting, a recruiting module, and then accessing the main areas of application related to recruiting configurations. So this is what going to be the learning objective for this particular topic. And apart from that, we will see functionality called as functional setup manager. In short, we call it as FSM. We'll see what is the purpose of an FSM, why it is very crucial for us to understand and how to effectively use the FSM. And then we will see what would this topic, I think we already covered it. And then we will quickly get into the recruiting process life cycle. First, we'll have an understanding of how the recruiting process will look like, as an end user. Though most of you guys are already from a recruiting background, but we'll still go and look into the recruiting process. And then we have certain prerequisites. So in order to implement ORC module, there are certain prerequisites. We'll see what are those prerequisites, and how to we'll see how to go forward with it. And then implementation steps overview. And then we will access the recruiting areas within an SCM to give you guys a look and feel of how the recruiting pages will look like. And then last, we will see a comparison between ORC versus Talio. Okay. So the Talio is a legacy application, legacy recruiting module from Oracle. And then the ORC is it's a new module from Oracle. I mean, though we cannot still call it as new module because it's been all close to 5-6 years in the market now, but we'll see a comparison between ORC and Talio. The reason why we are explicitly looking at this comparison between Talio and ORC is out of all my implementations, right? I would say 35% of my implementations were, I would say not 35, close to 45% of my 40% of my implementations were from Talio to ORC. Okay. So we have a lot of Oracle customers who are migrating from Talio to ORC. Okay. And especially in the last couple of years, the numbers has been increased. Okay. So we'll see why we wanted to do that, because see, I being an end user, in my early days of my career, I being an end user or as a recruiter, right? I used to work on Talio, and I still love Talio. As an end user, I still love Talio, and you take any recruiters, right, or any end users who have been using Talio, they always prefer Talio because Talio is very powerful. And ORC is now, in the last couple of years, there have been a lot of new functionalities, and they are still trying to, make it, a lot better than Talio. In a lot of ways, ORC is, it's lot better than Talio, but there are certain things, which is still better in Talio. So we'll see a quick comparison of it. And then the reason why we are looking at this, this slide will give you an idea about, right, let's say if tomorrow you're doing an implementation and it's in Talio to ORC project, then this will give you a heads up of what kind of questions you can, or what kind of scenarios you would be put up, in your project. So with this, we already saw the learning objective. Next, we'll see an HCM cloud overview. So this is the entire HCM suite we have in the Oracle Fusion. Okay. So we have 5 major umbrellas. First one is human resource. Second is workforce rewards. Third is workforce management, talent management, and work life. Okay. And these are the 5 major umbrellas we have under the Fusion applications. Okay. So all your core HR, workforce directory, workforce modeling, HR helpdesk, everything comes under the human resource. And specifically, the absence, payroll, compensation, everything comes under the workforce rewards. Okay? And then absence comes under the workforce management, including your time and labor. And then when it comes to the recruiting module comes under the talent management suite. Okay? Along with recruiting, if you see, we have Talio as well, because Talio is still, it's still an, product from Oracle, and they keep supporting Talio as well. So this is where the recruiting module falls under the the Oracle Fusion suite. And then we have work life, where they talk about my competitions, reputations, and things like that. But our focus would be on the recruiting module here. Next, we'll start with an introduction to the recruiting cloud. Okay? So we talked about the ORC, right? ORC stands for Oracle Recruiting Cloud. So the Oracle Recruiting Cloud, it is integrated with a complete HCM suite. So what do we mean by integrated with the HCM suite? If I just go to the previous slide, let me just clear the pages. So we said, right, recruiting or the ORC model, it is integrated within the HCM suite. That means, let's say tomorrow I want, I'm creating a new position as part of, we create a new position in the core HR. Let me just see if I can change the color of this pen. So let's say, we are creating a new position in the core HR module. Okay. So all those things happens in your core HR module. And then once I create a new position in core HR, and then if I wanted to create a requisition against it, I don't need a separate integration because my ORC module can talk to the core HR module without an integration. If it is Tally or any other, recruiting applications, then I have to create an integration. I have to create an integration, and then I have to build an integration where, it will pull the data from your core HR and then with your recruiting module. So, and then this will send an data to the recruiting module. And then I have to build a reverse integration because I have to get the data from your recruiting module and send it back to your core HR module. With ORC, we don't have that function. We don't need that, need for an external integration because it is part of the suite. And then let's say tomorrow, if we wanted to, create certain automations in the recruiting. For example, whenever an internal candidate applies, okay, the recruiter wants to see the internal candidate's assignment data. Like, what is their grade, what is their position, how long they have been with the organizations. Then, since this recruiting module is within the HCM suite, it works seamlessly. So let's say, I tomorrow, similar with an internal candidate, I wanted to, create an automation based on the performance rating of an employee, right? I wanted to shortlist the candidate accordingly. Then what I do is I can, pull out, the performance management data. I can pull in performance management data to inside the recruiting module without a need for any integrations. Similarly, I can build, something from, the payroll benefits. So basically the recruiting data can be, can pull data from any modules, and the other modules can also pull data from the recruiting module. Okay. So let's say, for example, as part of the workforce, let's say as part of the workforce prediction. Okay. So if an employee seems to be leaving an organization, then I can pull out all the requisitions for which he is the recruiting, he is the hiring manager, or he is a recruiter. So all these informations are interconnected and we can, consolidate and pull data easily. So that's why we say ORC module, it is integrated within a HCM suite. And then ORC will also improve the candidate quality and recruiting speed with a lot of comprehensive recruiting solutions. So what are the recruiting solutions we talked about? We are looking at, the requisition management, the interview management, offer management, onboarding journeys, and then, the integration with our core HR systems. So with all these recruiting tools, including your campaigns, talent management, talent community, everything combined together, right? It makes the recruiting process seamlessly and easier. And then ORC module also provides a compelling candidate experience. Okay? So the candidate does not need to be on a laptop or a desktop to, to apply for a requisition. They can just open the mobile, get into the ORC career site, get into a career site, start the job application, complete it, and then, they can see the status of the job application from a mobile device. Everything is like, completely responsible. Okay? And the same for the recruiters and hiring managers and all the stakeholders of the recruiting module. They can access the recruiting module from a desktop or from a tab or from a mobile. Okay. So what we'll do is, once we go into the application, once we start looking at the configurations, right, we will also see like, how to use the different kind of devices. Like, we have a mobile app. So we'll see like, how to configure or how to log in into the mobile app for the demo instance as well. Okay. And then ORC also includes robust sourcing tools. So we have a lot of AI functionalities which got added in the recruiting module. Okay. So we have something called as best candidate, recommended candidate, similar candidates, and then time to hire, recommended jobs. So there are a lot and lot of, AI functionalities which got added to the recruiting module, which makes the job of the recruiters easier. Let's say, yeah, and not only for the recruiters, hiring managers, even for the candidates as well. So one such functionality we have is in recommended jobs. okay, which is there in the career sites. What does this recommended jobs does is, like, in the career site, when a candidate goes to the career site, right, external candidate, the candidate will see a recommended job box. Okay. And the candidate has to upload the resume. Once the candidate uploads the resume, the recruiting module will read all the data which is there in the resume, all the skills, experience, qualifications, education, everything, and then it will match to the job descriptions of the requisitions, and then the system will show, dear candidate, these are the recommended jobs we have. So this makes the job of the candidate, easier. So let's assume that, you have a career set with, let's assume 500 jobs. And then, the recruit candidate has to manually search for the jobs and do that, right? And rather than doing that, recommended jobs makes that, makes the life of the candidate easier. Hmm. And then, as I said, ORC module provides a mobile responsive interface on any device. So this is a quick introduction about the ORC module. And there are a lot to talk about the recruiting module, which we will see, which we'll talk in detail against the respective topics. And what will be configured at the end of the training session? You guys, everyone should be able to create and tailor requisitions using templates, questionnaires, and all the customizations. And you should able to create an a mobile ready career sites for the external candidates to apply. And then all the recruiting management essentials, like the selection process, job application process, everything. I think the slide got duplicated. Yeah. So before I go to the
Yes,
FSM,
I
any
have
doubts?
one query here. Yeah. So
Sorry.
as you said, yeah, I have one query related to this mobile responsive.
Okay.
Yeah. So just wanted to know, like, does all the features and functionalities will remain same if we'll access the ORC from mobile device?
Yes, everything will say. Well, see, when it comes to the recruiting, everything, all the pages in the recruiting module are, mobile responsive. Okay. So at
So
least
it
from an
means
end user
essentially like
perspective.
UI will remain same if we'll access from laptop or from mobile device, right?
Yes. So for example, right, see, the laptop has a wider, screen. So that's why you get to see, like, all the icons here.
Yeah, yeah.
When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the mobile, right, the screen size is small. So
Yeah,
what
we need to
you will
scroll.
see,
Scroll, that's it.
you have to scroll up and down.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But the all features and functionalities will remain same.
Yes, especially for the ORC, the recruiting module, yes, all the functionalities from an end
And it
user's
will be
perspective.
the irrespective of the role. Like if the recruiter has, let's say the access to 5 different features, then those features can be accessible uh, from laptop as well as from mobile device.
Yes, that's true, Rizwana.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So what we'll do is, once we complete this, the introductions, and, once we start looking into a couple of topics in the recruiting, right, then I will show you, like, how to log in from a mobile device. That, we have an app in the, you can find that, Oracle app in Play Store and App Store. You can just download, and then we'll see how to, configure the app and then log in into the app. Then you guys can practice from your mobile app as well.
Okay.
See, and also when we talk about, the mobile responsive, always remember one thing. This is from an end user perspective. You acting as a recruiter, or acting as an, hiring manager, or acting as an interviewer, or acting as a candidate. All the functionalities will be mobile responsive. But when it comes to implementation, there are certain screens, configuration screens, which are not mobile responsive yet, and you cannot access from your mobile app also. Okay. So whenever we say mobile responsive, it's only from an end user's perspective, not from an implementation standpoint. Because this was a question asked by one of the person in my other batch. So Harish, can we implement the entire recruiting module from mobile app? No, we cannot do that. You cannot implement a recruiting module from a mobile app. But if you ask me, can I use the entire features of the recruiting module from a mobile app? Yes, you can use the features. You can use the module, but implementing it has to still be done on on a laptop, or on a tab. So any other doubts or questions, team, before I move on to FSM? Okay. So next we have is FSM. What is FSM? FSM stands for Functional Setup Manager. Okay. So what does the FSM provides? FSM provides an integrated and end-to-end application setup and maintenance process. Okay. So there are 5 stages of the projects we have, right? First we have is like plan. Okay. So as part of the plan, what we'll do, we will see like what all the modules has to be enabled, and then what all the setups has to be done, and then we will enable those functionalities which we do in opt-in. Okay. And then next we will start doing with the setups. Once we complete the setups, everything, then we have to move those setups from our staging instance, which is like the test or the dev, to production, which is the deploy. And once you deploy it in the production, you have to do the maintenance. Okay. And then as part of the maintenance, there would be some change, for some enhancements, some changes. Again, the cycle keeps repeating again and again. Okay. So this entire process is what we call it as FSM. Okay. So what are the what are the FSM features? Yes. First, as part of the plan, I said, we can analyze and we'll select the offerings as per the client requirement. Let's say, HCM or finance and all those things. And then as part of the opt-in, we will enable the offerings which is finalized for the implementation. Okay. So the reason why, I'm bringing up this topic, in the introductions itself is like, see, in Oracle, right, especially in Fusion, everything works based on your license. See, if a customer wants to use Oracle Fusion, they have to procure license from Oracle. Okay. How do this license works? The customers will say like, Oracle, that, we have 10,000 employees, and then we need, 10,000 licenses. Okay. And some customers, they, based on their demands and based on their hirings, right, they procure additional number of licenses. Okay. So let's say if you procure the license only for core HR and recruiting, and then if you use talent management goals and performance in your production, then, Oracle will, penalize the customers for, using the modules which are for which they have not procured the license. So that's why enabling the offerings, it is very crucial. See, with the staging instance, this is absolutely fine. Okay. So in staging instance, you can enable all the modules, you can, test everything. But when it comes to production, we can enable the offerings only for which, we have procured the license. And then as part of the setups, we will do all the setups for the offerings which we have enabled. And then we will deploy the setups from test to pod. And then FSM gives us the option to import and export setup data. Okay, we'll see from the application as well. And then once the setups are done, we will manage the setups. So what are the benefits of the FSM module? FSM it's a guided process. So let me just change the color. So FSM, it is a guided process. That means like, all the task list guides through the recommended setups. And then it's a centralized setup. So you can have one screen where you can able to, access all the setups of all the modules. Okay. We'll see that in the application as well. And then it is completely configurable. That means, we can enable the offerings as per the customer's, licensing and as per the customer's demand. And then most important functionality benefits of FSM is the import and export data. So FSM makes it easy to, migrate the setups from one pod to another pod. Okay. So this particular step, right, as part of our training, right, you might feel like, this does not have that importance, but trust me, guys, on a real-time projects, on a real-time implementations, right, this plays a very crucial role. Okay. So let's say, to do your entire setups in the, in your test instance or dev instance, right? Let's assume you took like, 3 weeks, okay, to do all your setups. And then all the setups are now finalized. Like, we need to replicate the same setups in the production. Okay. So imagine you took 3 weeks to, enable all the setups, and migration can be done in 3 days using FSM. Okay. The 3 days which I'm saying is like, that's the max. Okay. So that's a max period. It's like with 10% of your, time you put on your setups, you can able to migrate the setups. That easy is that's the use of the FSM. Okay. See, on a real-time projects, what happens is, implementation projects, right? When you do your CRP1, CRP2, right, you will have good amount of time. Let's say if you're doing 1 year recruiting implementation, from CRP1 to CRP2, let's assume you have 45 days. Okay. And then from, UAT sign off to production configuration, right? You may have only 10 days or 15 days. Okay. That's the time frame, which gets reduced after UAT. So this FSM will help you, in those times, for migrating setups, not only in the implementation, even in the supports, right? You would have enabled, a lot of, let's say as part of the support, you would have created some 5 CSPs with lot and lot of, customizations in the CSPs. Okay. With FSM, you can just click on export and then go to your destination instance, click on import, and the job is done. It's that easy, with FSM. Okay. So see, just to give you a real-time real-time info, right? Most of the consultants, they don't know how to use FSM and they don't know about FSM. Okay. See, these are certain skill sets, right? Especially if when you're preparing your resume. Okay. And once, let's say once we complete the training, and then as part of your training, you put a lot of hands-on experience, a lot of hands-on, practice in FSM, by exporting and importing. And then when you're preparing resume, if you put keywords like, FSM, functional setup manager, CSV export and import, these are your key selling points. See, being a fresher into the, while coming into the fusion world, right? Cracking a job is little tough. Okay. But these kind of small selling points makes a huge impact in your, interview cracking process. Okay. So that's why, I insist all the trainees to, start using FSM, as part of your practice. Once we complete each and every topic, right, I'll show you how to, export and import. You can definitely do that. And as part of the Unogeeks, right, we will be giving you 2 different instances. It's not that, you'll be getting only one instance. You will have 2 instances. If you see here, okay, so you have like, 2 different instances. Okay. So you can export your data from this instance and then you can import it in the other instance or vice versa, and you can able to practice it. So, and then the next benefit is, the setup maintenance will be made easy using the FSM. And then you can also export setup data reports. Okay. So if there are any configuration reports, if there are any errors, you can able to export those reports, which will help you to understand what is the issue and fix it accordingly. Okay. So now that, we talked about FSM for some time, any doubts or questions before I go into the application?
No, no, Harish.
Okay, perfect. So now what we'll do is we will get into the application and see like, how to access the FSM. So once you log in into the application, okay, you will be on this, home page. Okay. So once on the home page, we will click on settings and actions. This top right icon is what we call the settings and actions. Once you click on settings and actions, you will have to navigate to setup and maintenance. So once you click on setup and maintenance, this page is what we call it as FSM, the functional setup manager. Okay. So here, if you see in the setup, once I click on this value, you will see all the modules. Okay. So you will see recruiting here, and then, workforce deployment, workforce development, and supply chain, sales, procurement, finance, marketing, all the modules you will be seeing it here. Okay. So the first thing what we do as part of the FSM, which is like, if I just go back, it is basically, you have to enable the offerings here. Okay. So every module in Fusion application, right, these are called as offerings. Okay. So in order for you to enable the offerings, okay, before that, let's understand why do we need to enable offerings. So imagine you are getting into a fresh implementation project. Okay. And then you get an instance from your customer. So the customer, what they normally do is, they create an instance. Once see, Oracle basically creates an instance, okay, and then they will share the credentials to your customer stakeholders. And then your customer IT Spark would, what they do is they will create a user account for you, and then they will add one role to your user account, which is IT Security Manager. Hmm. And then they will give you the login credentials of the test or the dev instance. Once you get that user account, right, you will not see anything here in the home page. Everything would be blank. You will not see any of these details because you will not be having the roles. Okay. So once you add all the relevant roles to you, and the next thing what you have to do is you have to enable the offerings. Okay. So basically enable the offerings is basically you have to enable that module in this application. So to do that, what you have to do is we'll click on actions and then you will see this go to offerings here. Once you click on go to offerings, you will see these are the all the different offerings which is there in the Fusion application. HCM, not HCM, it is like across all the modules. So let's say, for example, you wanted to enable the recruiting module. You will click on the recruiting module and then you will click on this opt-in features. Once you click on opt-in features, you have to enable this particular recruiting module. How do we enable? It's very simple. Just select this checkbox against the enabled column, right? Just select this checkbox. It's done. Job done. Okay. So once you enable this, all this sub modules would be automatically enabled. And then here you would see something called as recruiting boosters. So what is recruiting booster? Recruiting boosters is an add-on module to the recruiting, into the ORC module. Okay. So we have two, modules in the recruiting. One we call it as ORC Oracle Recruiting Cloud, and and then we have an add-on module which is the recruiting boosters. Okay. So recruiting boosters basically it has a lot of additional functionalities, and the reason why we say it's an add-on module is because in order to use the recruiting boosters, there are certain license additional charges to the licensing we have. So that's why we say it's a separate it's a separate add-on module where the customers have to procure license accordingly and then they can start using it. Okay. So if required, we can just enable the recruiting module, and as part of our training sessions, we will see in in brief about the recruiting boosters as well. So once you enable this checkbox, then the job is done. This is how you enable the recruiting module. So until and unless you enable the recruiting module, right, in the setup, you will not see the recruiting and the candidate experience here. So as part of your practice sessions, you can just understand the navigations, but if you disable any offerings, right, request you to please go ahead and enable it immediately, because there are hundreds of other trainers who are trainees, who are using this instance for different modules. So once you enable this, your recruiting module gets enabled. And once you choose the recruiting module in the setup, you will see all the recruiting related setups here. And then for certain functional areas, right, you will see this, shared text here. You will see, a text here which is shared. The reason why for this functional areas alone, you see this shared button is because this functional areas are all, these are like, common across multiple modules. For example, your workforce structures, right? The primarily this functional area is used as part of your core HR, but it can be used for your recruiting module as well. That's why, you see this word shared. But if you see all the recruiting related ones, okay, you will not see this shared text here, because these are only for the recruiting module and not for others. Okay. So that's the difference between these two. And here you will see all the different functional areas, and under each functional area you will see different tasks or the setups for the recruiting module. Okay. So we'll not look into this in detail, but we'll come back to the screens again against respective modules. And the next benefit which we talked about, the FSM is like, your export and import. Okay. So let's say if I wanted to, export the entire setup, I can just click on actions and then you see this export. I can export the entire setups of this particular offering, which is recruiting. Okay. But there will be a lot of, logistical challenges, like, certain, configurations, which is required from other modules would not be there. So we'll have certain challenges when we try to, move the entire setups. But, what I would personally suggest is like, you can move task by task. So for example, let's say I have a geography hierarchy. I wanted to move all the setups under this geography hierarchy. Then what I will do is, by default, we should see an action button. If you don't see an action button, click on view You go to columns and then just select this action button here. Now you will see this action. So let's say I wanted to migrate all the setups which is there in geography hierarchy. What I'll do is I'll click on actions and then you see export to CSV. You can just click on create new. And then you can just click on submit. So once you click on submit, then all your setups in the geography hierarchy task would be exported. To see the status, you can again click on the task, click on export to CSV. You will see this not started here, right? You can just click on it and just click on view progress. So here, if you see this is getting, the file is getting prepared, you can just hit on the refresh button if you wanted to refresh this progress. So based on your data, based on your setups, configuration setups data, right? The time needed to, generate this file will vary. So for certain smaller setups, like, it gets generated immediately. And if the setups are long, then it takes, a few minutes. Let me just. Okay, I'll just click. Right. So I think it's taking more time. So once it is done, what happens is a zip file would be available for download. Okay, so you can just download the zip file, go to your destination instance. And what do I mean by destination instance? The instance for which, like, where you need to import the setups. Go to your destination instance, go to the same task and click on the action. And then instead of export, now you will choose import. Okay. So you will just click on import, click on create new, and then you will have to choose the CSV file here. Okay, the zip file which you exported, right? You have to choose the file. Once you choose the file, click on submit, and then the job is done. The setups will be migrated. See, we have just talked about it theoretically, but once you start, practicing, right, then it would be easier. When you can start practicing this setups. Okay.
So Harish, so I can share this exported data, right?
To whom, Franklin?
No, just for an example. What is the reason that we are exporting this?
See, let's say you have created, setups here, geography hierarchy. You have made a lot of setups, and then you wanted to move the setups
Okay,
from one instance to another instance. Okay, for example, if I just go inside this geography hierarchy, right? Okay, this is the geography setup. So you see, I have created all these countries, and then let's say, for example, if I just expand United States, I have all the states here. And then if I expand any state, you will see all the cities here. Okay.
correct.
So let's assume you would have spent some, 10 hours in, creating this geography hierarchy. Setting, this entire structure, right? You would have taken 10 hours. And then now you wanted to move this to your production or some other instance.
Okay,
So rather than spending 10 hours in creating it, spend 5 minutes, export the data. Once you export, like, the entire setups would be exported in an Excel file, the configuration details, and then go to your destination instance, import the setups, and then job will be done in 5-10 minutes max.
okay, got it. So I can move this in any modules, like from record to ORC.
No, no,
Sorry.
no, you cannot. It is basically task related. So for you can export geography. If you exported geography hierarchy setups, then you can import it only in the geography hierarchy setups. See, you can match apple to an apple, orange to an orange. You cannot take apple data and put it in orange, right?
Okay.
See, the main purpose of this export and import is to save time in your, in migrating your setups. See, what happens is in real time, right? Let's assume you have created all your setups for your CRP1. And then for CRP2, you wanted, customer says we wanted to have CRP2 in another instance. Then you have to migrate all your setups from one instance to another instance, which,
Okay.
let's assume it takes 15 man days. With this functionality, you could able to complete in 2 or 3 man days.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
And then see, these are some functionalities which is not been widely used by all the consultants. Okay.
Mm.
To be very frank, like, many of the consultants, right, they don't know this functionality here.
So this we call it as FSM.
Yes, FSM, or in short, you can just call it as export import of setups.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
See, the reason why I talk about this in the freshest batch a lot, see, let's all consider, assume we are all freshers to ORC, right? Though we all have our domain experiences, but these are like, some of your key selling points in your interviews.
Okay. Correct.
See, my ultimate aim is to, get you, pass on the knowledge, and also to make sure, like, you are interview ready consultants. Right? So when you talk about certain functionalities which is there in Fusion, and during, in your if you put those in your resumes or talk about it during interviews, that will be a key selling point. But to talk about this functionalities with the confidence, what you have to do is you have to do practice. So when you can start doing these practices, once we start with this pre-screening, right, from this particular topic, you can start using the FSM. So once we complete the pre-screening questions, you can start exporting and importing this particular task. So once we are done with the export and import, now let me just go back to the PPT. And the next topic which we have is in recruiting process flow. Okay, so this is a very general recruiting process flow. It doesn't mean that this is the process flow which has to be followed. Every customers, every organizations, every sub departments inside an organization will have their own recruiting process flow. Okay, but I just took an a standard flow. So what happens as a standard flow, the hiring manager would be the one who would be creating the requisitions. So the hiring manager is the one who would be creating the requisitions. Once the hiring manager creates the requisitions, the recruiter completes the job requisition and posts the requisition in the external and internal career sites. And then we will have an another stakeholder called sourcer, or the recruiter who would create campaigns and use the candidate pools to bring in the job applications into the requisitions. And then parallelly, candidates will also start to apply to the job requisitions. And then recruiter or the collaborator, they will manage all the candidate responses. Like, whenever a candidate applies, they will open the candidate profile, see what is the candidate skills and qualifications, move the candidate across the CSPs accordingly. And once shortlisted, the recruiter or a collaborator or an hiring, I mean, all combined, all these four stakeholders combined together, they will have interview activities, in scheduling of interviews, and all the logistics and everything will be completed. And then recruiter or the
So
yes,
we, uh, because we are in this interview activity, so the scheduling of interview here also it would be integrated with WebEx or Teams through Oracle, right?
yeah. So currently we have integrations only with Teams and Zoom, Franklin. WebEx is not currently supported. We don't have an integration with WebEx, but we can expect that in the near future. But with the current version, which is as of 24.8, we have integrations with Teams and Zoom.
Okay, so that means I can directly schedule an interview in Oracle itself through Oracle.
Yes, that's correct. So once the interviews are completed, next, the recruiting or the hiring managers, they conduct the interviews and collect the interview feedbacks. And then once the candidate is shortlisted, the recruiter, they create and extends the job offer to the candidate. And then the candidate will, view and accepts the offer online and then completes all the pre-hired tasks. And then once the candidate joins, the HR specialist will complete the hiring activities and then assignments within the HCM data. So this is a standard recruiting process flow. The reason why I kept this slide is like, we have a lot of people who are from, the non HR backgrounds or non recruiting backgrounds, who has worked on other Fusion modules. But for them, just to give an overview, we have this slide here. The next we have is, the prerequisites. Okay. Prerequisites are very crucial for the ORC module. The reason being is that in order to implement ORC module, the customer should have implemented the Oracle Human Capital Management based cloud service, which in short we call it as your core HR. Okay, so without your core HR, ORC cannot be implemented. Okay? So this is a very crucial point, which we need to have it in our mind at all times, that, if without an core HR module, ORC cannot be implemented. Okay? So whereas if you take Talio, right, Talio is a standalone product, so you don't need an, a prerequisite module. Talio can be implemented as a standalone, and it can be, used without, any other modules. But with ORC, we need, the basics of core HR module. That's why we mentioned, Oracle Human Capital Management base cloud service. Base cloud is where, like, you will have to end up creating legal employers, enterprise, legal employers, business units, department, jobs, positions, and all those things. Okay. So that's a most important prerequisite for us to implement the ORC module. Next, we have to enable the recruiting and candidate experience offering, which we just saw in the application. And then the security roles and the privileges, which we'll see that in detail, in the upcoming sessions. So these are the three prerequisites which we have in order for us to start implementing the ORC module. And next, we will see, like, accessing, the recruiting areas within the HCM module. Okay. So I'll just go back to the application. Okay. So in Fusion application, we have three screens. Okay. Let me do one thing. Let me just log in as another user. And also remember, guys, this this instance, right, it is shared across, the Unogeeks trainees. Okay. So there will be a lot of other trainees who will be using the applications. So don't have any of your confidential data in the application, especially, right, what happens is, let's say, if I just search for an user, right, we have email IDs. Don't update your personal email IDs here as a general practice and as a best practice. Don't put your personal email IDs here. You can, if required, you can create some dummy Gmail IDs, or you can use some disposable email IDs. Don't enter any of your personal informations, your email IDs, or your mobile numbers, or your organization names. Let's not have any of the confidential data in the application. So what I'll do is, let me just reset the password of this user. So this user, for some reasons, right, most of the trainers use the same user in all our, training sessions or demo sessions. We always get in touch with, we logged in as Curtis Petty. So we don't know the reason why we use this user, but we've been using this user for a very long time. And also sometimes, team, you will see some, lag in the instance. uh that's like, very common. It will be there for, like, a couple of minutes, and then it will be back to normal. So just giving you a heads up on this. Okay, so I just logged in as Curtis Petty. Let me just go to the homepage. So in Fusion application, right, we have three major screens here. Okay, so the first we have is me, okay, and then my team, and then my client group. These are the most three important screens we have in the Fusion application. Okay? Anything and everything which an employee has to perform for himself or herself, those would be under the Me tab. Okay? And any actions which an employee has to perform on behalf of the team or as an hiring manager or as a line manager, those tasks would be there under My team. Okay? And any actions which the employee has to perform as a recruiter or as an HR, then those would be under My client group. Okay? So to reiterate, all the employee self-service actions will be available under Me, and then all the manager self-service actions would be under My team, and then all the HR self-service will be under My client group. Okay? So these are the three different screens which we have. So first, let us start with the recruiter. For the recruiter to access the hiring module, they have to go to My client group, and then you will see this hiring. So now what we are doing is I'm just walking you across, the different screens we have in the recruiting module, just to give you guys a look and feel of, how the screens will look like. So once the hiring, once the recruiter clicks on, the hiring, right, they will be landing on this page. Okay. So in the left side, you will see job requisitions, where you will see all the requisitions which is there in the application. And we have candidate search. If you wanted to search for the candidates, you can use the screen. Campaigns, candidate pools, job offers, events, you will see a lot of things here. Okay. We will definitely be looking at each and every screens, every actions we have in the recruiting module team. Okay. So we will be looking at all the actions and functionalities, whatever you see in these pages. But for today's session, for now, I am gonna just give you a walkthrough of these pages. Okay. Don't think that I'm skipping any of the topics here. No, I'm not skipping any topics. We'll definitely be coming, we'll be frequently visiting these pages. We'll look at each and every functionality which is available in these pages. So for the recruiter, they can just come here to see all the requisitions here. Okay? And if they click on the requisition, so basically before we go inside the requisition, you will see an overview of the requisition here. Like, the title of the requisition here, you can able to see the title of the requisition, and then whether the requisition is open or filled. If it is open, what is the status of the requisition? So this is basically open, unposted. Okay? And the next line shows whether this requisition is in standard or pipeline. So we have two types of requisitions in the recruiting module, which is like, one is standard and the second is pipeline. So what is a pipeline requisitions? Let's say, you have some, pipeline projects, and for this particular projects, you wanted to create a pipeline of candidates. Then you can create a pipeline requisition. So in pipeline requisitions, you cannot offer any candidates. Okay? You can just create candidates, you can move them across the selection process, but you cannot create offers for the pipeline requisitions. Okay? Whereas in standard, you can create offers. That's the major difference between pipeline and standard. And then you can see, the count of the applications. And then here we have something called as prospects. Okay. So what is a prospects? Whom are we referring to prospects in the recruiting module is, let's say as an employee, Harish as an employee referred a candidate, to this particular requisition. Okay. Then that candidate would be added against a prospect. Okay. What happens is my referral, right? He or she would get an email, and once they get an email, they can log into the career site. They can see the job opening, and they have to apply as a candidate. Once they complete the job application, then prospects would be moved to the applications. Okay. And then let's say, I'm creating a candidate as a recruiter. I'm creating a candidate. The candidate can be kept in prospect. I can invite the candidate to apply for the job applications. So that's the purpose of prospects. So we can see a lot of things, here. And then apart from that, you can also have some quick actions here.
I'm sorry, Harish, can you repeat for the prospects?
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. So,
This is a reminder.
Yes.
I'm sorry. The prospects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the prospects are like, one step earlier than, the job applications. Okay. So when an employee refers a candidate, okay, that candidate would be treated as a prospect. Okay. Because the candidate has to complete the job application in order for them to become an applications. Okay. So the referred candidates or the referrals, right? The referrals, right? They would be called as prospects.
Does it mean like, let's say one of the employer has referred a candidate, so that application will come under prospects, and once the candidate log in and provides some necessary information, that prospects will come under application.
Exactly. That's absolutely right, Rizwana.
Okay, okay, got it.
So,
Thank you.
Rizwana, you are from Talia background, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, in Tally also we have a similar kind of functional, but I think the terminology is different.
yeah. It seems.
Okay. Okay. So this is how the recruiter screen will look like. Okay. So in the interest of time, I'll just quickly jump into, the hiring manager screen. So the same, I'm going to the recruiting as an hiring manager with the same user. Okay. So you'll see an hiring icon under my team. And once I go to the hiring, okay, you will see the screens of the hiring manager. And remember that one thing, team, like, this user plays the role of a recruiter as well as the hiring manager. That's why they get to see a lot of actions here. But if it is a pure hiring manager, then, they will not have access to campaigns. They will not have access to candidate pools. They will not have access to events. They will not have access to recruit to hire. All they can see is the requisitions, candidate search, job offers. Okay. And then the data would be restricted only based on the roles. Okay. And this is a common functionality across Fusion module, that if the user has multiple roles, then, all the privileges would be clubbed together and it will work as an, OR operations. So they can see all the data as a recruiter, they can see all the recruiter as an hiring manager. Okay. And the reason why I'm explicitly saying this point is that, during your interviews, okay, your interviewer will ask you a question. Okay. They will ask like, Harish, I have a requirement where, like, I have a user who is a recruiter as well as an hiring manager. And there is a requirement from the customer stating that, when I access hiring from my client group, then the user should, see the screens as a recruiter. And then when I access hiring under my team, then the user should see the screen of a hiring manager. Is it possible? The response would be no, we cannot able to, we don't have that functionality, because in Fusion the rules works as an, and operation. So since this user has multiple rules, all the privileges would be combined together. And then now we will quickly see, the internal career set from an employee perspective. Okay. So for that we have to go to me, and under me you will see opportunity marketplace. Opportunity marketplace is the internal career site for the employees. So this opportunity marketplace is also, and again, it's a Redwood page. So in the opportunity marketplace, basically the internal career site, right? The employees, they can see all the job openings which has been posted, and they have a lot of other functionalities which we'll explore in the coming sessions. So these are the different screens which we have as part of, the recruiter, hiring manager, and, employee. So in the interest of time, team, what we'll do is, we will just take a pass here. We have just covered all these topics, and then we have, like, the implementation steps overview, and the recruiting areas and comparison between Talia to ORC. So those topics, we will start with those topics in tomorrow's session, and then we will quickly get into the getting to know recruiting topics. So before we wind up today's session, any other doubts or questions, team?
So Harish, this pipeline requisition you were referring to, right?
Correct.
So it can be created by the recruiter or the hiring manager.
See, they both can create. Okay, so the creation of the requisitions, let's not, talk about it for now, Franklin. The reason being is we have a separate topic. Where is that? We have a separate topic for the requisitions. So
Okay.
that we'll talk in detail about, who can create, how to restrict. We'll see in detail. But for
Yes.
now, yes, both can able to create pipeline requisition.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if there are no other doubts or questions, then we'll wind up today's session. So thank you so much, team. You guys have a great day. Be safe. And if you would have completed your enrollment, you should have received your access to the applications and the recordings. Please start, hands-on practice. At least try to spend some 30 minutes to 1 hour a day for your practice sessions. At least like just keep navigating around, the Fusion applications. That way, like, you will start building up that habit. And then once we start with the core setups, that this habit will help you to, keep practicing a lot. Okay. With this, thank you so much, guys. You have a great day. Be safe, and let's connect tomorrow at 8 a.m. IST.
Thank you, Harish.